Backpacking is one of the most empowering things you can go through in your life. Staying in a hostel, you've got two people snoring so badly the walls are shaking, you've got someone throwing up in the bathroom, the couple over there is having sex in a bunk. Yet there's something so exhilarating about being in a foreign place and literally the only thing you have with you is the backpack that's strapped to your back. I've traveled to 30 countries over the last 3 years, and in this video, I wanna go through the top 5 places for new backpackers to try out in 2024. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, welcome back to Living Nomad. My name is Alex. If you're new to the channel, everything here is all about fitness, travel, lifestyle, living that good life. And again, in this video, I want to go through my top 5 recommendations of countries you should visit if you're new to backpacking or just new to traveling in general. Now, this list is not going to be in any way exhaustive, but my priorities when I made this list were things like safety, accessibility, language barriers, and places that I would generally recommend going, having been to so many places throughout my life. So let's kick things off with a crowd favorite, Croatia. I lived in Croatia for a little while. I was based in Split. I went to Dubrovnik, Hvar, Vis. I never actually went to the capital of Zagreb, but I have heard good things as well. And why do I think Croatia makes this list? Croatia has something really, really special about it. The people are friendly. Obviously, everyone does speak Croatian if they're a local, but they all speak good English as well. It's relatively inexpensive. I will say over the last few years, it has gotten a lot more popular, and because of that, gotten a lot more expensive to travel there. But you have an incredible mix of nightlife, nature, outdoor activities, history, places to go and places to see throughout the day, as well as an amazing, exhilarating nightlife experience in many different cities. They have everything from like major, large hostels that are like party vibes down to like more quaint sort of hotels or hostels if you're like looking to stay a little bit more low key while you're there. Croatia's always been really famous for things like Sail Week or Yacht Week that encourages people to fly into the country and then immediately board a yacht to travel around the Adriatic, visiting different islands, going to day parties, swimming in the sea, doing some absolutely mind-blowingly beautiful things. Especially if you're doing like the Yacht Week route that goes to Ultra Music Festival, it can be just an absolute bender of a trip. Generally, I would recommend Yacht Week or Sail Week if you are in your 20s, as it is, like, to be candid, pretty ratchet. One of the main complaints people say is that there's no aircon on these boats, they're like infiltrated with bugs and Australians, and both of those things can be hard to get rid of once you have them. But with that being said, I had an amazing time in Croatia. I would say the food isn't as good as obviously like some neighboring countries like Spain or Italy. I will say the food is not as good as some of the nearby countries like Italy, Spain, Greece, but I did enjoy my time there. The people were friendly. It is, like I said, absolutely incredible to go. I would say you don't need longer than a few days in some of the larger cities like Split. Maybe Zagreb, like I said, I never went there, but people had good things to say. But really, it's super simple to get around some of the neighboring islands, party all night, stay in a hostel, come back to like the main cities, fly out to a nearby country. It is just a great place to spend, I would say, generally like 2 to 4 weeks. 2 weeks you can get the country done, but if you really want to get baked into the culture, I would say 4 weeks would be fine. All right, number 4. What do I think is number 4 on this list? We're going with Ireland. I had a great time in Ireland. So Ireland being a predominantly English-speaking country, they do have some of the signs in Gaelic, which I thought was kind of interesting as you get out of like Dublin or the larger cities. But even then, everyone is still going to speak English. If they don't have a pretty prominent Guinness twang by the end of the night, you may not be able to understand them over the accent. But either way, the signs are going to be in English. Everyone's going to speak English if you are speaking English yourself. And it has, again, a really neat, unique blend that hits a lot of different people's priorities. They have some incredible nature sites. If you go to like the northern side of Ireland, outside of like Belfast, you can go to some of the places where like Game of Thrones was filmed. There was some Harry Potter filming sites, some really, really cool, iconic locations and sites outside of the city, Cliffs of Moher, for example, things like that. But they also just have like a really warming, sort of inviting culture. When I was there, people had like, up until that point, told me that Irish people weren't the most friendly, but I mean, I'm Canadian and honestly, it felt like home. People were very welcoming in all the hostels I went to, and just like being around the city, they have like pub crawls that are very inviting. Just even walking into random pubs by myself, it's super normalized to sit down at the bar, order a Guinness, chat up the bartender, and you just kind of feel like you're a part of the Irish culture, even though you may not have been there for very long. Now, I will say, of course, the Irish food, that is something that is an acquired taste. I did have some really, really good food experiences there. They do have some Bib Gourmand restaurants in Dublin That's where I predominantly stayed during my visit. But I also went to Galway, I went to Belfast. I've heard great things about Cork, Kilkenny. There's just a lot of cities that are relatively accessible, whether that's through bus or train, that let you kind of whip around and see a lot of the country. It's not very big, it's very, very safe, very close to like the east coast of the United States and Canada, as well as obviously the rest of Europe. So I do think it is a good place if you haven't really traveled that much. Super friendly, super easy going place to go for your first trip. All right, my third recommendation, we're actually gonna move out of Europe and we're gonna go back to North America. I'm going with Mexico for number 3. I've been all over Mexico, and so many people I've met traveling throughout the years have been to like the West Coast, the East Coast, places like all the way from Sayulita to Oaxaca to Mexico City to Puerto Vallarta to Playa del Carmen to Tulum to Cabo. Like there's so many places you can go in Mexico that it kind of just opens you up to any sort of dynamic you want you can have when you're visiting Mexico. If you're someone who likes like the city kind of bohemian party vibes, obviously La Ciudad de Mexico, one of the greatest cities in the world, has everything you can possibly imagine. Absolutely massive city. If you were there for any less than like a month, you're barely even scratching the surface of all the things you can do and see in that city. I was there for almost 2 months, and even then it wasn't even close. Like I had a list of 100 other restaurants I still wanted to hit while I was there. And because Mexico is so close to the United States and Canada, if you are like I said, new to traveling, maybe new to getting out of the countries, it can be like super kind of convenient to know that the safety of home really isn't that far away. Like I spent a lot of my time personally down in Argentina. That's like a 14-hour flight to get home if things go awry. Versus like if you're in Mexico, if shit hits the fan, you can fly home pretty quickly and it's not too big of a deal. It's not really gonna cost you that much money either. But if you are someone who wants maybe like a little bit of beach vibe, you have the choice of like the Atlantic side or the coast. Like I said, the Playa del Carmen. You can also go to the west side on the Pacific to like Oaxaca City. There's really just a lot of different places you can go within Mexico. And because people have been traveling there for so long, there's typically a lot of English-speaking people at travel destinations or tourist destinations. It is, of course, a little bit less safe, I would say, than the other suggestions on this list. That's why it's at number 3. But if you are like relatively street smart, ideally if you do speak some Spanish, you'll be totally fine. But I would say advise caution, like don't go out looking for trouble and ladies of the night. That's really how you end up in the back of a Mexican jail, so be careful. All right, my number 2 country, we're going back to Europe for this one. I'm going Spain on this because I think Spain has a lot of different cities, and like there's so much history that goes into it, with obviously like incredible food, incredible wine, incredible nightlife. You have everything from like Madrid to Malaga down to the coast to like Barcelona and Valencia. You can go to the islands and go to Ibiza. I'm Latin American trained Spanish, so I don't say Ibiza. I realize that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. You can also go to like Palma de Mallorca. There's just so many different places you can go in Spain, and it's relatively safe in most cities you're going to go to. People do speak a decent amount of English. As you get further north into Spain, you will hear Catalan, which is quite a bit different than Spanish. So that's like something to keep in mind if you are going to like more of the rural side of the country. But other than that, there's just really so many unique destinations that, again, I think like even spending a month in Spain is not going to let you see all the places there is. It's also extremely accessible by train or by plane to move around the country. You can take buses, you can take ferries to Ibiza, to Palma de Mallorca. There's just like a lot of really cool things to do. And obviously so much historical significance, having some of the oldest like roots of human civilization. So super interesting place, highly, highly recommend it. Great place to backpack. Again, safe, accessible, amazing food, great people, great nightlife. Check out Spain. All right, and my number 1 recommendation for new travelers backpacking, it is gonna be Portugal. I've spent close to 3 months of my life when I was living there, from Lisbon to down on the coast in the Algarve at Lagos, up to the north part of Porto, and kind of everywhere in between. And I think Portugal just has this really magical feeling about it. I know like Lisbon especially has started to get pretty well priced out from the locals, and there is a little bit of animosity towards like digital nomads and long travelers. But I would say like typically as a backpacker, if you're staying in hostels, if you're eating in like cheaper places, if you're cooking at the hostel, there really isn't that chip on the shoulder that some locals will have if you are like someone who's staying there for an extended period of time and pushing out locals. But again, I would say like between like the nightlife and the vibe in Lisbon, that is pretty much like unparalleled. Like I've had some absolute rips in that city till the break of dawn, several like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, all the way to like going up port tasting in Porto, and like sitting along the river and listening to people playing live music. And it's just like a really beautiful country. You can obviously like get out into the countryside even further. Then, I mean, even outside of the mainland, you have the Azores, which people consider like the Hawaii of Europe, down to like Madeira, which is a really big digital nomad hub right now. Just there's like some absolutely gorgeous landscapes across this country with some of the best people I've ever met, some of the best food I've ever had, the best vibes. Like Portugal as a backpacker, I think is like where I would start. It also is like, again, super accessible from the East Coast of North America because it is like one of the first countries if you look at the western side of Europe. Lisbon Airport is also a major hub if you're flying to places like Morocco or like in Africa. A lot of stopovers happen at the Lisbon Airport and then fly further south. So that airport has a lot of flights, a lot of accessibility from pretty much anywhere in Europe, anywhere in North America, making it a great destination if you haven't spent much time traveling. Portugal, I can't recommend enough. It is just absolutely incredible. But that's gonna be my list. Top 5 places for new backpackers to go. What do you think? What did I miss? Do you disagree? Do you agree? Comment in the section down below. As always, thanks for watching. My name's Alex. Welcome back to Living Nomad. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.